What's up, Totem Pole Nation? This is Lambo and Matt's World of Sports. I'm MattPatt. That's Lambo. This is with Sideline Sports Network. Like, comment, subscribe as always. And if you want some merch to support the boys, the link will be in the ticker below. Got some dope hats. We've got cool hoodies. We've got t-shirts. We've got everything you need, and it really won't break the bank. So if you want to show some support, go for it. We will retweet, quote, whatever. If you just tweet at us with the merch, that'd be huge. Without further ado, we're going to get into the NFL Week 8 recaps, latest on the trade deadline, and everything that's going on around the NFL. So let's get it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the trade deadline is tomorrow at 4 p.m. That is the deadline. Now, there was rumors going on that Derrick Henry might have been traded, but he's going to stay. Not only that, before I talk about the teams, I got to talk about those Titans, baby. Will Levis, is he the future of the Titans? Now, obviously, you picked the Falcons, and Desmond Ridder got benched. And I was very iffy. And you asked me on national television if I want to change my pick. I said, no, I'm not going to change my pick. Because I understand they play Malik Willis as well and Will Levis. They played two quarterbacks, and then Will Levis was the hot hand. Man, DeAndre Hopkins, 3 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, he got some. I get it. But Will Levis threw for 238, all right, which is – I don't find that odd, but I'm like, wow. Now, I'm not hyping him up just yet, but going forward, I think he's the guy. Ryan Tannehill is still hurt. Will Levis threw for 4 touchdowns. Derrick Henry still rushed for 100 yards, so they did just enough. Taylor Heineke played. Wow. I hadn't heard of Taylor Heineke in a minute. So Taylor Heineke played. Desmond Ridder got benched. The Falcons are 4-4. They actually lead the division in the NFC South at 4-4 because the Saints had the same record. Is Will Levis the QB going forward? There was some boos going on with Malik Willis. I don't know if it was like disrespectful or they were bad. I'm not sure. But Will Levis obviously had the hot hand. What are your thoughts on this game? And the Falcons need a QB situation as well? Because, Desmond Ridder's been inconsistent all damn year. And I'm glad you asked me that I want to pick my pick. Because I was about to go with you on this pick, and I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah. So, just looking at the game before it happened, you know that they're rolling out a rookie and a second-year guy who's only played in like 2 games, going against a defense in Atlanta that has been performing very well this year. And I just didn't think that they'd be able to handle it, especially from what we'd seen from Malik. And then the thought process would be like what we've seen from Malik. If this is the best they have as their number 2 option, I don't even want to know what Will looks like. And it turns out Will looks like a dog, So, if you just watch like the box scores and stuff from last year, you wouldn't think that he would be this level of quarterback already in the NFL. And I will put my hand up and say that I fell victim to that a little bit. Nothing about what he did at Kentucky really impressed me, minus the obvious physical features that stand out. And that's why he got drafted. As I say as high as he did fall to the 2nd round. But I think if just based on the product he put on the field at Kentucky, he could have been later than that. But the physical tools are what got him drafted as highly as he did. Considering his college performance, and he's putting those tools to use in the 1 game he's played. So, like you said, I don't want to hype him up too much, but he definitely deserves to get the next start. And I think the start until it gets bad enough to where you don't think he's the one to be on the field anymore. Like, obviously, next week or whoever their next opponent is, it's not going to be a walk in the park. Like, this is the NFL. Everybody's good. Even the bad teams can still beat you on any given Sunday. So the vibe around Willis, I think, would be play him until it's evident that he's not the guy, which in my opinion would be the rest of the year. I don't see a better situation. I don't see Tannehill going out there and putting better or giving this team a better chance to win. And I also think it gives you a chance to lean on Derrick Henry a little bit more. Like the attempts for Derrick have been down relative to past years. Now, granted, past years he's been the most used running back in the league by like a decent margin. So I'm not saying that he needs to be that exact same workhorse, but it was going a little bit in the opposite direction. I didn't like it considering the strengths of this team having one, I think, like good wide receiver one. Treylon Burks, we don't really know what he's going to turn into. And so like the strength is obviously Derrick Henry, and I think having a rookie QB in there would put more of an emphasis in keeping Derrick involved in the game the entire game. And then obviously having to put guys in the box is only going to make it easier for Will Levis to make passes. So I think the plan should definitely be roll with Will for the rest of this year.
All right, so as far as the trade deadlines, surprisingly, the Giants made a trade earlier today. They sent Leonard Williams to the Seattle Seahawks for a 2024 second-round pick and the 2025 fifth-round pick. The Giants are taking on a $10 million owed to this player. Are you surprised with this trade, by the way? Per Pat McAfee, so?
No, I'm not surprised. He's not. Obviously, a second and a fifth is not a cheap trade when you think about what some of like the top caliber skill positions have been traded for. So I don't want to talk about it like I'm not acknowledging how great he is. It's not one of the big names that would have garnered a huge return. So, it doesn't really strike me as like this is definitely an indication that the Giants are going full sell mode at the deadline. And maybe they're just trying to move some stuff around, get an extra pick, and then they'll ride out the rest of this season with the team they've got. And now they have a few extra picks. When it comes to some other teams, I think this trade deadline, and I could be wrong and it could just flip tomorrow, which I kind of hope it does. It's always more exciting. But the buzz and stuff around it has been a little shallow. Like, obviously, people were talking about Kirk at first, and even if that did have momentum, it definitely doesn't now. And then, the Panthers with Brian Burns. I'm just saying, like, if that even was a legit story, it is definitely not anymore. Panthers, their big name was Brian Burns, but apparently his contract demands within the organization are kind of making him untradeable, not in like a disrespectful, oh, he's untradeable type of way, but like just where they are with the contract, it doesn't make sense to make a trade right now. And then, like the Commanders, I think this has been the most popular take is that the Commanders will move one of their D linemen by tomorrow at 4. And, they've got names on that defensive line. So it could be your pick of the litter when it comes to Sweat, when it comes to Chase Young. And I'm forgetting one other guy, so excuse me. But, like, they've got dogs on that D line. You could get a pretty decent return if they decided to do that. And like we talked about earlier with head coaching stuff, with Rivera most likely being out next year, wouldn't it make sense to gain draft capital and maybe shed some of the bigger contracts on your defensive side to then when it's the new coach making his decisions for what will be his roster, he has more draft capital to work with and more, I guess, freedom to pick who's going to be in his system. Because like that's always the big thing when a new staff shows up, a new GM, a new head coach, when they show up, it's always like the first couple of years they're getting guys into their system and kind of getting rid of the dudes that don't fit into what they are doing. And I'm not saying anyone particular on this D line doesn't fit whatever the next defensive scheme will be. I'm just saying it would make sense if they moved on from at least one of these dudes to add draft capital and give this next head coach a little bit of a head start.
I think also they probably could trade for some offensive pieces, not the wide receivers, obviously. Maybe somebody in the offensive line, because I don't think Washington offensive line is really all that either.
No, Sam is one of the Yeah, Sam is one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL. He might still be the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. So
I think he is.
Yeah. So that wouldn't surprise me either. It's just offensive lineman. If you want like a one that's going to slide in as a starter, you're going to have to give a lot. So maybe
is it crazy? Is it crazy to say David Bakhtiari? Is it crazy to say that
he's not playing this year?
Oh well, maybe use him next year, but no.
I don't know. If I were trading for David Bakhtiari, I would give them like a 6th or 7th round pick. The dude hasn't played a full season in like 4 years, and it's just every year it's his knees. He's all better, and then the season starts and he gets like a weekend of practice, and the knee is no longer better. So, yeah, I don't think Bakhtiari is the answer. I don't know. Obviously it's different for every team, but if you want a dude that's going to slide in and be a starter immediately, you're going to have to give up a good amount of capital.
All right. Recap the Rams and the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, I'm a Cowboys hater, but I had to pick them. Not only I had to. The Rams are bad. They're awful offensively, defensively. Matt Stafford, I think he's at the end of his career. No disrespect. I like Matt Stafford, but my God, he's running for his life. The Cowboys defense, and of course the cornerback in Bland after the Trayvon Diggs injury gets his 3rd pick 6 of the year. I'm not surprised by this win, obviously, because I picked the Cowboys. I'm not surprised this was a 20-point blowout. At some point in the game, I think it was like 30-3. So I'm not really surprised that they whooped their ass. Rams are just falling apart. They're the youngest team in the NFL with 19 or 20 rookies. Dak Prescott played like Dak Prescott. The Dak Prescott I want to see against clutch teams like the Eagles, the 49ers, and CeeDee Lamb getting the ball. This is what I want. This is what the Dallas Cowboys what I want. CeeDee Lamb's always open at 158 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns on 12 receptions. And I want to see this against the Eagles. I want to see this against the Niners. Teams going forward in the playoffs, this is what I want to see. This type of explosive offense. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I was pumped. Obviously, I was pumped. Unfortunate Stafford hurt his thumb. That always sucks, and it's probably going to take a while to get better. If you remember, similar thing happened to Dak. He was out a couple weeks, came
5
back.
games.
Yeah. So I feel for Stafford there. That definitely sucks. But I didn't really care. This game was awesome with him in and with him out. We were all over the ball on defense. Obviously, holding Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua to, I think it's 64 combined yards, if I'm remembering correctly. 64 combined yards for 2 of the most electric receivers in the NFL this year. Obviously, Cooper's on his way back, but his first game back, he went off. So I'm pumped about it. Our receiving core looked great. Cooks is a consistent contributor. Jake Ferguson hasn't dropped a pass in like a month, which if you remember earlier this year, I was saying there's still been a lot of drops similar to last year's team. This tight end room has been dropping a lot of balls. And since that, Ferguson has not dropped a pass. He had 4 in this game for about 50 yards and a touchdown. And it's on that seam. That we have had opportunities like that. I've seen like 4 or 5 of them. And this is, I think, the second one where we've actually scored. It's a tight end route up the seam. And it's just a throw over the linebacker. Maybe you have a closing safety or whatever. But Dak has put the ball on the money for that throw 4 or 5 times this year. And there's been at least 3 drops. So to see that play go through and it actually worked this time was awesome. The running game was just okay, but it really didn't need to be great considering what we were doing in the air. The interception, yeah. That was a tip by like 3 people before it got to the defender. So maybe Dak put it in a little bit of a dangerous spot, but if it touches 3 dudes' hands, I don't really know how much blame you can put that on him. But it is an interception. I will concede that. Yeah, I was just over the moon. Defense everywhere. Micah's a dog. Deron Bland is a dog. He gives me so much faith that I've talked about this in the past couple of weeks. Our cap for next year is going to be a much different situation than our cap space this year. Right now we have like 20 million in cap space open. So plenty if we wanted to go out and get somebody at the deadline. I don't think we will. Like maybe someone at depth at like the linebacker spot, but I don't see us making like some big splash. But then next year we've got like 4 or 5 in free cap. So it's not like next year we're going to have a lot of money to be able to bring Steph back if we wanted to after this 1-year deal. But it gives me confidence that we're not going to have to. Like if we continue to draft well, which obviously we have been drafting phenomenally the past probably 4 years. Well, I'd say since Dak and Zeke, honestly. So 2016, we've been drafting very well, which has not always been the thing with Jerry at all. So I will give him credit there. We've been hitting on the draft picks. I think you give the guys another year to do that. You don't have to pay Stephon Gilmore for another year. You have Deron Bland on a 5th-round contract still. And then you have Diggs back, which obviously he won't be the same for at least a couple weeks in the next season. But he's still Trevon Diggs, and we could add in the draft as well. I think we're in a great spot. And yeah, I mean, I think we proved that when we're playing our game, we're just as good as anybody in the NFL right now, which I've been on that since week 1. It's just when we're not playing our game, we look like dog shit. So it's a little tough. It's a little tough.
I hope y'all somewhat maybe do that against the Eagles because, like I said, if Sam Howell threw for about 4 touchdowns, 300+ yards, I need Dak to do the same thing. Or if he don't do it, it's gonna be a lot of criticism. Not from me, but everybody else in America. I'm not gonna say too much. But
dude, honestly, he could go out there and throw for 100 yards and 1 touchdown. If we win the game, I don't care.
No. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. When y'all win, I was talking about the losing part. I ain't saying I don't care about that. Y'all win. Y'all win. That's fine with me. I'm just saying, if y'all lose, that's gonna be a different story. Now, this game, the Vikings versus the Packers. Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles. Sad and unfortunate. The Vikings, they're 4-4. They were like 1-4, so they won 3 straight. Jordan Love is not the answer because the offense can't get going. And Kirk Cousins is still threw 2 touchdowns before tearing his Achilles without a Justin Jefferson. They were able to they didn't run the ball very well. They had Madison and Cam Akers. I mean, the run game is still weak. The Vikings defense stopped Green Bay. Is it sad to say the Jordan Love era is a fluke? And what are the Vikings going to do without a Kirk Cousins?
Well, I don't know what they're going to do. I saw some things about maybe good old Jameis down there in NOLA getting a trade call or something, but I don't know if it's worth it at this. So the thing is, they're still in contention for the division.
Yes.
Like it's not out of the picture that they go on a run. So it wouldn't be surprising, I don't think, if they were to bring in a different QB, but I will say it is a little bit not – it makes it a little bit unrealistic in my mind just because of the point of the season that we're at. If you bring in a new QB – and honestly, a new QB would probably be better than the guys that they currently have. But
they got Jaron Hall, a 5th-round draft pick out of BYU. That's who played on Sunday.
Well, I mean, yeah, but Dak was a 5th-round guy. Like he could, or 4th, but he could like be a dog. We don't know, but from what we saw, it didn't look like it. And so do you trust him with the rest of the season in his hands, or do you go out and do you trade for Jameis, or do you sign Colt McCoy? Like
sign Colt McCoy.
I'm with that. I brought that up to one of my buddies last night. I think Colt McCoy is the way to go. But to that point, he's got to learn the offense.
And Jaron Cook has already learned the offense by sitting behind Kirk Cousins, obviously, or a little bit of the offense. But it's just, it's hard. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, you're probably just going to wait and see what happens. But as you're right, as far as being a playoff contender, I wouldn't trust a 5th-round pick just yet to get you there. You still don't have Justin Jefferson for like another. He may come back this week. If it's 4 weeks, he was on IR since week 5. He should be back this week, but it's tough. It's unexpected injury. Kirk Cousins barely got hurt. Like his whole career, barely got hurt.
Right.
He had some injuries. I'm not saying he never got hurt, but a season-ending injury. This is like, wow. Because Aaron Rodgers,
and it's sad too because this was like a contract year based. Now, honestly, obviously he's made over $200 million in his career. He's not stressed about money, but
he don't even spend money. Like you watch the quarterback series, the man
right. And I've talked about it before. Like he has won when it comes to negotiating contracts in the NFL. He won the game. That's what he used the franchise tag stuff to his advantage, and then he, for multiple years, he let them do it twice, or whatever that extension thing was for like a year, and then he re-signed his big deal or signed his big deal with the Vikings, and he got more than I think he would have gotten if he signed an initial deal with the Redskins at the time, or after maybe even the next year, he wouldn't have got as much money as he did. And so he just kept stacking and stacking and stacking. So I think this is kind of, when it comes to that, like a blow, because he was going to do it again this year, I bet, because he can go up to any negotiating table and say, hey, guess what? This is what I've done in my career. And you look at the numbers, he's a good quarterback. And he would warrant, especially with the way the QB market is now, the amount of money these guys are getting, he would get a fat check. Now he's going to be 37 going into next year, recovering from an Achilles tear.
Might have to consider retirement if they don't pick up his contract.
Well, so I think a team would want him. I think another team would sign him. I don't think you just look at what he's done the past 2 years, and even this year, like they weren't losing because of him. I agree. Yeah, so I don't think a team would just be out on it. Like I don't want this to happen because I like Baker, but say Baker just falls apart. He's on a 1-year deal. Would the Bucs want to take a chance on Baker in a second year, or do you go out and do you get Kirk Cousins, who could operate your team?
I
love Baker.
If Todd Bowles wants to keep his job, Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, exactly.
Kirk Cousins with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I mean, shit.
Right. So that's if Evans comes back, obviously. But but like, you know what I'm saying? Like he's going to be wanted by, like, there's going to be a handful of teams like that, I believe, in the league. I don't know exactly who right now. Like it could be the Giants. Who knows? Like there's so much stuff that could happen that he's definitely going to be a starting quarterback next year. Which team, I don't know. And then the amount of money he's going to make, which obviously we don't need to be pocket watching for Kirk Cousins. He's made a lot of damn money. But like his contract probably just dropped by like 20% just from that injury. Kirk
Cousins to the Falcons. If Arthur Smith gets fired, this is make it or break a year. I don't think he'll get fired mid-season. If he gets fired, they have Taylor Heineke. I don't know if he'll start going forward, but Desmond Ridder did get benched. They're not sold on Desmond Ridder. Arthur Blank is kind of very impatient. I wouldn't be surprised if Kirk Cousins goes to the Falcons.
Yeah,
maybe. Maybe Pittsburgh. What about Pittsburgh? Maybe Pittsburgh. Yeah, Kenny Pickett ain't the answer.
No, I agree, but the fact that they spent the first round pick on him, I think that buys him at least another year. If he was like a 4th round draft pick that got thrown in there his rookie year and played okay, and they went with him his second year and he didn't play good, I think, yeah, he'd be gone after this year. But because they drafted him in the first round, I think, it loosens the leash a little bit to where they can – but they probably will allow him to start for another year. And if it's going like his production has been this year, then hell yeah, he's most likely gone. But I think, given that he's first round, he's got another year.
All right. You were right about this game. Saints versus the Colts. I like Gardner Minshew. Surprisingly, the Saints offense has struggled. They scored 38 points. The last time they scored 30 points was against my New England Patriots like week 4. They scored 34. There was a close game, but the Saints were able to run the ball very effectively. Shaheed had 153 yards receiving on 3 catches. Jonathan Taylor still had his 95 yards. Gardner Minshew did his thing with an interception. Downs did his thing. Taysom Hill ran the ball with Alvin Kamara. That's a shocker. They used him at running back. I'm not surprised how they used Taysom Hill. They used him at tight end and read option stuff before, but used him at running back. He was my God, 2 rushing touchdowns. The Colts defense couldn't really stop him. I thought the Colts was going to win, which they had some chances to win, and I was wrong. What are your thoughts on this game?
I love Gardner too. I think that he's a really good quarterback or I don't want to say really good. I think he's a good quarterback that could be a starter in the league if he was in a different position. And obviously he's starting now. He was signed to this team to be a veteran leader, behind AR. And now that AR is gone, or not gone, out, he's getting his chance as a starter again. And it's great. But when it came to this game, I didn't think that the defense of the Saints were going to allow as many points as they scored in this one at all. So I was wrong in my reasoning, because my reasoning was that the Saints defense was going to shut down the Colts offense. Not the case. With an offense that's been struggling in New Orleans, I thought this was going to be a much lower scoring game. Rashid Shaheed, 60 yards a catch or something, or maybe a little bit less than that. 50 yards a catch. Yeah. So he was a beast. Michael Thomas is still good for a couple good chunk plays a game. And Kamara's since he's been back, he's gotten back to his form. He's still one of the best at the running back position in the league. I don't know exactly where I'd rank him right now, but he's one of the top guys at that position. So I don't know. I mean, I was going to say Dobbs. Josh Downs is a very good rookie receiver. He's great in the slot. He's emerged in a big way. JT getting back into his role on this offense is great. I think the road is only up for here from the Colts. I think, maybe not this year. They'll lose a few more games, obviously, but in the future of this team, I think they have a very good young core that they can, play well around if they can get the defense to show up week in, week out. So, yeah, I was right on the game, but I think the bigger takeaway is that the Colts have, a good foundation that they're building, and they lost to a team that was at its full capacity, and they were down their starting quarterback, and they're not the Colts that they will be next year, which I think is the bright light at the end of the tunnel if you want to be optimistic about the Colts.
All right, Patriots versus Dolphins. Jalen Ramsey came back in 94 days. Great recovery. The defense let Tyreek Hill slip a little bit. I don't know what the hell happened. They let Jalen Waddle slip a little bit as well. I think they both combined for about 221 yards receiving. It's still terrible, but it's not as bad as what the Chargers gave up. All right. Mac Jones played, I give you mediocre. The interception, we were down 14-7. The interception he threw to Jalen Ramsey was god-awful. I mean, that probably cost us at least maybe 3 points, a touchdown. I'm not sure. By the way, the Patriots defense did play well. And I know they gave up yards. And I get that. We couldn't cover correctly. I get that. But you had 2 turnovers. You pick off 2 of the second drive of the game. You pick them off. You get a fumble in the beginning of the second half. I mean, the offense has to do better. I mean, you got 2 turnovers to the Miami Dolphins. I mean, I don't know what else you really want the defense to do. The run game was sort of mid with Zeke and Ramondre Stevenson. We stopped Raheem Mostert to 46 yards on the ground. They just threw the ball on us. They were a lot better. Patriots are 2-6. The Jets have a better record than him, surprisingly. I know I said last week that the Patriots have a chance to, maybe go 10-7. I do not see that happening. So I'm going to say this on national television. The New England Patriots are officially eliminated from the playoffs.
Well, I'm glad that you have finally gotten to that spot. And if you couldn't tell, I'm frozen right now. Computer's doing its normal weekly thing of wanting to mess up while we're live. So that's great. Yeah, I'm glad that you finally got to that point. I know that there's a bunch of Patriots fans on all like the shows that I watch and stuff when it comes to Pat McAfee show, and then Pardon My Take with Barstool. There's Pats fans on both of those, and they have been under the the mindset the past few weeks of let's go get a great draft pick. So it seems that you're finally on that wave, which is cool. I hope that you guys get a really good draft pick. I think right now you guys would be 5th in the draft order. So
by the way, cut out. So by the way, he said they'll be 5th in the draft order. The Patriots do sit at 2-6. This is probably the worst record in Bill Belichick's career since 2000. When Bill Belichick got hired in 2000, the Patriots were 5-11. So this is probably the worst start in forever. The offensive efficiency for the Patriots is not good. By the way, I think I was joking when I said we're going 10-7. By the way we played, it's just not sure. I don't know how that will possibly work. Kendrick Bourne, by the way, was hurt in that game as well. He did tear his ACL, so we lost everything. We lost Christian Gonzalez for the year. We lost Matt Judon for a while, and we lost Kendrick Bourne. And the Patriots sitting at 2-6 are definitely not going to make the playoffs because we can't stop anybody. Our offense is mediocre. With the schedule going forward with the Patriots, like I said, they play the Commanders, the Colts in Germany, and then they have a bye week, and then 2 days after Thanksgiving, they will play New York Giants. So the Patriots have a lot of injuries. They're on a pace to be number 4, number 5 in the 2024 NFL Draft. So we'll see how that goes as far as the Patriots concerned. Like I said, I might have been delusional. I might have been joking about us going 10-7, but the way things are going, we are not improving. But as a Patriots fan, I will continue to watch the Patriots. I'm not sure if Belichick will trade Mac Jones. Now, there's a lot of questions going on in the media saying, is Mac Jones going to be started going forward? I'm not sure. I mean, I feel like he'll still probably be the starter going forward this Sunday against the Commanders. I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if Bailey Zappi will be the starter going forward. I guess Belichick's not ready to pull the plug on Mac Jones. So I don't know what to really tell you on there. Like I said, Patriots are done. They are officially eliminated for the playoffs. Now, the next game that I'm going to get into is the Giants versus the Jets. All right, that's the game that I have to get into, the Giants versus the Jets. Ladies and gentlemen, the Giants versus the Jets went into overtime. All right, that game went into overtime, Giants versus the Jets. With Tyrod Taylor being hurt, unfortunately, he just has bad luck with the injuries. And the quarterback that they had, my God. I mean, this was a rainy game. They had Tommy DeVito at quarterback. That might be a familiar name from an actor or movie. I'm not sure. DeVito. I mean, it just pops when it says DeVito. Ladies and gentlemen, the Jets have a better record than the Patriots, and I hate to say that. And I like Aaron Rodgers, but I hate the Jets. But Zach Wilson played to expectation. When I say expectation, he played well enough to win. Now, Mr. Dan Orlovsky, you said that Zach Wilson played a great game. No, 17 for 36 is not a great game, by the way. Not only that, he made clutch enough throws to get into field goal range, obviously. They 229-yard throws, obviously. But see, you Jets fans, not only Dan Orlovsky, but you Jets fans tend to do this. You did this with Tim Tebow. You take a game and you sit there and watch it, and then you take 2-3 throws and say, oh, he played a great game. No. Zach Wilson played a shit game. So did Tommy DeVito. This was a bad game. The Jets were awful on third down. 2 for 15 on third down, and I think your conversion came down at 2:19 in the fourth quarter. Oh, my God. I mean, you couldn't complete anything. The Giants' defense, they suck. I get it, but it's been better. Ladies and gentlemen, I forgot that the Giants ran the ball for 203 yards. They gave Saquon Barkley the ball 36 times and still took an L. They still took an L, and they gave Saquon Barkley the ball 36 times. 36 times. I don't know what to tell you. The Jets barely ran the ball. Garrett Wilson went for 100 yards receiving. I mean, Tommy DeVito was so bad. They told him to throw the ball. He had -1 yards passing. -1 yards passing. And Giants fans tell him, let him throw the ball. Let him throw the ball 2 for 7 for negative. Yeah, I don't know what to say. The Jets, by the way, we both picked the Jets. The Giants did trade, obviously, the defensive tackle. The Giants are bad. The Jets are improving. Do you believe in Zach Wilson until Aaron Rodgers comes back?
I believe that he is the best option until Aaron comes back. And it's the same reasoning I had with the Kirk stuff. It's just like if Zach is keeping you in contention, which they're hanging on by a thread, but if Zach is keeping you in contention, it's hard to imagine another quarterback coming in. And Zach hasn't been playing great, but he's been playing well enough to win the past, 3-4 games. So
yep.
It'd be hard to imagine it would just be hard to imagine them getting another QB in there that would learn the system that quickly to make a better impact on the field than Zach has been doing. But I don't want it to sound like I'm saying Zach is the best guy out there that can lead this offense in Aaron's absence. I think as poorly as Jameis has played in some of his recent performances, like if he was there all year, the offense would be clicking at a much higher rate than it is with Zach. The issue is Jameis would have to learn the playbook, or any quarterback you bring in would have to learn the playbook. So, yeah, I think you got to ride with Zach.
All right, next game, the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. We both picked Jacksonville. Jacksonville has won 5 straight games. The defense is great. They're undefeated on the road. Pittsburgh dropped George Pickens did not give me any fantasy points, but Kenny Pickett did get hurt again, the second time this year. Jacksonville looks good. I think Jacksonville is the best team in the AFC behind Baltimore. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are who they thought they were. They're mediocre. Mitch Trubisky won't the answer last year. And Kenny Pickett, he keeps on getting hurt. And the Steelers offensive line, they transfer, they maneuver things around. It needs some damn work.
Yeah, excuse me. Sorry. That's honestly how I felt watching this game, just yawning the whole time. I talked about it literally first ever show on what has now become Lambo and Matt's World of Sports. I was very vocal in my distrust and dislike for this Pittsburgh team. I didn't think they deserved any of the hype that they were getting. And I think that has followed through. The defense has kept them in games. The defense has won them games. And the issue now is I feel like the statement I was about to say would give Kenny a little bit too much credit. Like, we can't act like when Kenny got hurt and he went out of the game that he was balling or keeping them in contention at all.
Oh, also before you continue, they blamed the penalty. I don't know. Mike Tomlin and Deontay Johnson were talking about a penalty. They cost us.
Deontay Johnson, yeah. Deontay Johnson was like, I know we don't. What did he say? He said we don't like to blame officials, blah blah blah. But they lost us this game. They lost us this game, is what he said.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
What? Like,
you lost by 10 points. You lost by 10.
Right. You think the refs? Yeah. I mean, the refs just gave the other team 10 points. They just handed
Jacksonville defense is better.
Right. And their offense is better. That's like, they're a better team. It maybe in like a divisional game where it's down to the wire, you expect a player to say something like this. This was a boring game.
You didn't lose by 1 point, 2 points, or 3 points. You lost by 10.
Well, you lost by 2 possessions. That's the whole thing, is like, that's one call that doesn't eliminate your offense being stagnant for the past 3 weeks. And like, even with your return, in speaking specifically for Deontay, like, yeah, he had a decent return to the lineup. It's not like you coming back just means that like every single game we're the better team, we're going to win. No, you lost the game to a better team. That's just how it is. Quit crying about the refs. There's plays every single game. If the refs actually called every single foul that they saw on the field, football would be unwatchable. You wouldn't be able to watch it because there'd be a stop every single play for someone breaking some sort of rule. That's how you play football, all right? The refs call what they see as the most egregious, the most obvious, seeing something like, oh, if I let this go, I'm going to get hammered in this meeting coming up on Monday or whatever, right? They're not calling every flag. If you want them to call every flag, sure, you're going to get called for offensive holding. You're going to get called for offensive PI almost just as much as the receivers are, because you're so physical. Every team is physical in the NFL. So to complain about the refs losing you a game when it wasn't like tight at the end, like 2 possessions, you lost, you got beat. Every team is physical. There's fouls. There are fouls on every single down of football. Every down you could call holding on the offense and the defense. Every down you could call holding on offense or defense. It would be unwatchable. You want the refs to call everything? Sure, go for it. But you can't, that would be terrible football.
All right, Eagles versus the Commanders. Sam Howell threw for almost 400 yards against his defense, which should give the Cowboys and Cowboy fans confidence in this game going forward next Sunday. A.J. Brown still had 130 yards receiving. I think it's back-to-back games. So he had over 100-plus yards, especially against the Miami Dolphins. Josh Dotson had 100 yards reception as well. The Eagles were down, but Jalen Hurts did what Jalen Hurts had to do. But the run game obviously wasn't really there for the Eagles. The only way they'll beat the Cowboys is running the ball effectively, but the run game was at 59 yards, which is unheard of. Both teams couldn't really run the ball. But Sam Howell, 39-52. For almost 400 yards against the Eagles secondary. That is god-awful. Now, both of these games have been very close. 7-point games, I think, in both of these after the first game went to overtime, obviously. But what are your thoughts on this game? And like I said, the Commanders are going to make some possible trades because it did depend on this game. They were competitive, but teams are going to get the Commanders are going to get some trades in probably by tomorrow. And Ron Rivera, even though they're sitting at a losing record, Ron Rivera may get fired in like maybe week 10. I don't know if he stays the rest of the year. It's just hard. Yeah,
I think he'll stay the rest of the year, but we said it earlier. I do think this is his last year in Washington, but I think he'll stay the whole year. Sam played great, but I agree with you. The closeness of both of these games does give a little bit of confidence going into our game this week, but at the same time, it's always close in the division. Obviously, there was the week one thing with us and the Giants, and that was not close at all. I get that, but almost all, and you could with this rule just exclude the Giants. All right, the Giants have been so bad the past few years; they don't get included in this rule I'm making right here. Divisional games are always close. All right, so the Eagles playing this close against the Commanders gives me a little bit of confidence with this matchup with the Cowboys, but it doesn't be like, oh, Sam Howell did this, so automatically Dak is going to do the same thing. The teams always play each other really hard, and you play to what you think is going to win you that game in particular. So, there have been games this year where Robinson and Antonio Gibson in the backfield of Washington have played super well. They were going against the best run defense in football, so that wasn't an option this week. And then you go to the flip side with Swift. Gainwell, I think, fumbled the ball. And then, their running offense going against a great D-line, and then also understanding that the secondary is giving you way too many opportunities with AJ and Devontae and Dallas Goedert to not be taking shots. So it's on a per game basis. So it doesn't give me too much confidence against the Eagles and the Cowboys, but it is a little bit eye-opening seeing how well Sam Howell is playing against divisional opponents this early in his career. I mean, you think about his first start, that was against Dallas, and he just whooped our ass. So now clearly we had dudes sitting out and stuff like that, but that was most of our first team in there that didn't get pulled till the third quarter, and Sam Howell was just out there cooking. So what he's done against divisional opponents, twice against the Eagles and against us, it's nice to see him not being a bust like Washington is used to in that quarterback room.
All right, the Carolina Panthers got their first win of the year against the Texans. We both picked the Texans. I don't know how the hell Carolina won, or I just don't know how. It looks like this game was field goals. My God, a touchdown. I mean, this was, Carolina kicked field goals and beat the Texans. I don't know.
It was a boring game. It was boring.
Lord, it was boring. Yeah. Bryce Young did just enough to beat the Texans. I'm very shocked because the Texans had some promise. Lord, I'm glad this game wasn't on national television. What are your 3 words of this goddamn game? Boring as shit.
Yeah, that's a perfect 3-word description of this game. Boring as shit. Yeah, I mean, it was you could make it exciting if you wanted to, given the context of the game. It was the number 1 versus the number 2 pick. There's been a clear winner so far of who was the better pick up to this point, and that has been CJ, and then Bryce comes out and gets the win. So, that's cool. The Texans are what the Texans are. I think they're right around what their record says. They're a 500 team. They could be a little bit below that. And, they regardless of how they do this year, they're not going to have their first-round pick. So I don't really think it matters all that much. I think, with this being D'Amico's first year, the way that this team is playing based on expectations, they've already won. I think they've already had a success. I mean, unless CJ goes out and just starts throwing 2 picks a game, I don't think that there's a lot of negatives that you take away from this season. You've got 2 young receivers that are great in Nico Collins and Tank Dell. You've got a promising rookie quarterback with CJ. Pierce and Singletary are a good 1-2 punch in the backfield. Now, is that the long-term answer? Probably not, but it's serviceable for now. I'm pretty sure Pierce was pretty close to 1,000 yards last year in his rookie year. So, and then obviously Singletary's been a decent running back too for the past 4 years as well. So, I think the Texans are what the Texans are. They need to improve the defense. The offensive line needs to get a little bit better, but they're set up when it comes to skill positions. I think tight end room, they're fine with Schultz. He's one of the better tight ends in the league. Wide receivers, I already mentioned 2 young stud at quarterback. You just beef up the O-line a little bit and you focus on the defense with the draft picks that they will have, which will be second round and on. I think, the Texans are in a good spot. This loss, I don't think, puts any negative thoughts in anyone's mind about what this team could be in a couple years. This game was like an expectation bowl, how well these guys played in this game against each other is what you expect a little bit from them going on the rest of the season. Like maybe it's a turning point for Bryce and he starts playing better than he has been. And maybe CJ comes a little bit more down to earth. We saw him have a phenomenal start to his rookie year. So I don't know, not too much to take away from the game. Boring as shit.
All right, Cleveland versus Seattle. I did pick Cleveland. They did have a chance, but they lost the game with 40 seconds left. Geno, Jackson Smith, and Jigba from Ohio State. P.J. Walker did have his 2 interceptions, but I think there's a possibility that Cleveland makes a trade just for the running back spot. Just because Kareem Hunt is not the same Kareem Hunt he once was, and the loss of Nick Chubb really hurts. The Seahawks are a sleeper. Now, I trust Geno. I hadn't seen enough of him in the playoffs, but I trust Seattle. Seattle, I think, currently leads the division because San Francisco has dropped 3 straight games, and now they're on top. What are your thoughts on this game? And, of course, they do lead the division because the Rams are 3-5, and Arizona is 1-7.
I mean, yeah, this game was all right. Geno did not play well, I didn't think. He played well enough for them to win, but nothing – there weren't too many – he had good throws. Don't get me wrong. I'm not shitting on Geno too much. They got the win. He made throws that he needed to make, but he didn't look like the Geno that we're used to seeing, and I think they got lucky that this Browns team wasn't playing up to what we've seen in the past 2 weeks with PJ working with this offense. PJ had been doing everything they needed to do to win games this year. This game he didn't, and they came out with the loss. Now, obviously, Seattle's in a better spot right now than the Browns, considering the Browns QB situation. But, there wasn't too much in this game that really opened my eyes to anything. I thought that the Seahawks would win, and that's what happened. So I feel like I didn't learn anything from this game. It was just a cool game to watch, I guess. It wasn't super exciting, but it wasn't boring. Like you said, the game came down to the last 40 seconds. So that's always entertaining. But, it was a mid game from the quarterback perspective. JSN looks like a dog. I think we already knew that. DK, still nice. Jake Bobo, being an impact player, even if he's not in the rotation of wide receivers the whole time, he scored on a rushing touchdown. That's sweet. So, yeah, fun game, but nothing to write home about, I don't think.
Denver Broncos beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, you said the divisional games are close. Now, they played each other 2 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. They held them to, they just only scored 8 points, obviously, but they held Chiefs to 9 points. The wide receivers are dropping balls. It's the same thing in week 1 with the Lions. They had a chance to beat the Lions. They're dropping balls, and there's wide receivers are letting down Pat Mahomes. Also, he had 2 picks. Russell Wilson is still a mediocre quarterback, even though his stats is bad. Who's 12 from 19 for 114 yards and 3 touchdowns? It's kind of mid to me. 3 touchdowns. Glad like you said, a win is a win, but I'm just like, really? Russell Wilson, don't put him on your fantasy numbers. The defense did some things, obviously. The Chiefs just struggled. They were down the whole entire game. They were down at 1 point, 14-3. And like I said, they did just enough to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. The defense, and of course, when you drop balls, a lot of balls, it makes Pat Mahomes look bad. So obviously he looked bad.
Well, he also looked bad because he threw 2 interceptions. He didn't play good, and I think that's okay to admit. Sometimes the golden boy doesn't get all of the negative comments that other quarterbacks get. That's fine. But in this case, I think he does deserve some shit. I mean, he did not play well, flat out. Now, receivers were dropping balls. This has been the same conversation all year. I think as a unit, they've had like 2 good weeks this year. And outside of that, they've looked average at best, if not bad. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I know that they already went out and got McColl back from the Jets, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs were a buyer tomorrow before 4 o'clock at maybe getting someone else in that wide receiver room to, I don't know, spark something, because these guys got to get it together. And it's not just on him. You let one of the least scoring offenses in the league put up numbers. I mean, yardage-wise, not as much, like you said. Javonte Williams, though, had a great game on the ground. And then through the air, I get it, he didn't have a lot of passes completed, but out of those 114 yards, like 60 of them were touchdown passes. Like they were just big yardage touchdown plays, and that's all it took to beat the Chiefs this week. The Chiefs, I've said this multiple times, and this year has kind of been a different path for them. In the past few years, since their dominant run has begun, so 5 years ago, I guess at this point, with Pat, they never cover, right? They never cover. It's always, they're in a close game and then they pull it out somehow at the end, and then they get to the end of the year and they've only lost 3 games and they're the best team in the league. That's just what it looks like every year. This year they were covering games. So when they went down early, I thought like, all right, well, this is just what, the Chiefs of old, they'll come back and figure this out. And they never did. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, this game I feel like is on both sides of the ball because, like you mentioned, Russ's stats aren't great, but he still managed to get 3 touchdowns in the air. They allowed Javonte Williams to have a good game. Like the defense just had a little bit of a off week, and the offense did not show up.
All right. Baltimore Ravens versus the Cardinals. Obviously, it was a 7-point game. Josh Dobbs with the 2 interceptions. He is no longer the starter. The starter going forward is Clayton Tune. All right. So I guess they gave up on Josh Dobbs, and I guess it's a lot of I guess the Cards want to win now. They're 1-7. They're at the bottom of the NFC West. Baltimore is the best team in the AFC. Lamar Jackson did what he has to do. With the new offensive coordinator, Todd Monken. They're the best and the most consistent team because I trust them offensively and defensively and special teams. That they're the most consistent team in the AFC, right behind Jacksonville. Not really too much on this game. I mean, the Cardinals suck. We knew they were going to suck. Their only win was the Dallas Cowboys, which was sad. And waiting for that, they'd be 0-8. So, yeah, Baltimore's the best team in the AFC. Do you think this will happen going forward with the Ravens? Will they continue to be great, or do you still have some concerns?
Well, so I wouldn't say that this game they just played offensively was great.
No, I agree.
Yeah, like it wasn't a great offensive game. It was just enough, which I think the great teams figure out how, like, what's enough. Like I literally just went into my whole thing about the Chiefs the past 4 years. A lot of games that they played in the regular season weren't great, but they won, and then they got to the playoffs and showed everybody who they were. So I think a similar thing could be said about the Ravens for sure. They obviously Lamar had one of the best games he's ever had the week before, and then this week just wasn't the same offensively. Targeted Odell. I don't know what it said on the stat sheet, but you can add like another 4 to that because 4 of them were taken away by penalties on other parts of the field. He targeted Odell all day, didn't get a catch. And I think, we've been seeing it this year. Almost every team that has a star receiver, that receiver has been vocal about how they want the ball more. And then the next week or two, they get force-fed the ball and they show the league why they're a top receiver. You see it in Dallas with CD. His past 2 games have been insane. We've seen it in Philly since AJ and Jalen had that combo on the sideline. He's been unreal. And there's other examples as well. that I could get into. But the point I'm making with the Ravens is that maybe it's like Odell isn't the guy to force feed 12 targets to or whatever. Like you've got a new young dude in Zay. You have Mark Andrews. I think, and Aguilar has played well as well. So I would focus on more spreading the ball out rather than force feed Odell. Like I get it. Oh, he's been hurt. He also hasn't scored a touchdown this year. So I'm sure frustrations are getting high. You saw that video of him on the sideline, like banging his helmet down or whatever. That's going to happen. That's whatever. All right. Every team has a receiver that doesn't think they're getting the ball enough. That's not exclusive to the Ravens. It's not exclusive to OBJ. But I think in this particular sense, you don't buy into that too much like Dallas did, like since he did with Jamar. I think this is a case where it's like, all right, Odell, I understand your frustration. But we've got Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews and Aguilar over here who are all having great years. Maybe we get you your 5 or 6 targets a game, but we got to focus on these other guys too. That was my biggest takeaway. The offense didn't play great, but they've got to get into spreading the ball out.
All right. The Bengals versus the 49ers. Both picked the 49ers. Now, I probably should have picked the Bengals. Joe Shiesty is back. They struggled. He was not healthy. They came off a bye week, and look what they're doing. Brock Purdy, I said he was a good quarterback. I didn't say he was elite. He's going through his little struggle phase right now. I see it. I get it. They're missing, of course, Debo and Trent Williams, which I didn't know Trent Williams wasn't going to play. I knew Debo wasn't going to play. Not using that as an excuse, but that Bengals defense is something. Joe Burrow really torched that 49ers defense. Now, torched them well. Now, I wouldn't say torched them the whole game, but when you throw 2 picks, it doesn't really help your defense, obviously. So it kind of gave them the short field. Jamar Chase did have 100 yards receiving. Kittle still had 149 yards receiving as well, but the 49ers are going through their woes and their struggles. I think Cincinnati is a team we need to talk about. Cincinnati probably has a chance to actually, no, I'm going to say they're going to make it back to the NFC Championship game. I'll take over the Buffalo Bills. The 49ers do play Jacksonville. They're on a bye week, and then they play Jacksonville 2 weeks from now. So luckily, the 49ers are on a bye week. They can revamp some things. They get all their players back and whatnot. What are your thoughts on this game? And we both picked the 49ers, so we were both wrong.
Yeah. So I honestly don't think Brock should have played. I feel like him going into concussion protocol that late and then still playing, and then you saw him hit the ground pretty hard and he was holding his head afterwards. Like, I felt like if we learned anything from the Tua situation last year is to not push it when it comes to that stuff. And I don't think it should have gotten to the point where Tua got like 3 concussions in 2 games before we make that, adjustment. But it kind of like reminded me of that. He was put in this week after being on concussion protocol pretty late. And, it didn't look like he was back. I don't know if you saw the stats of like him before that head-to-head collision and after, but like before the collision in that game, he was throwing the ball at like 75%, good passer rating, hadn't turned it over. And since that head-to-head collision, he is throwing the ball at like 50%. He's got 3 turnovers. It's just not the same QB. And yeah, a major head injury will do that to a guy. So I think that they rushed him back out there, and it's not all on them. I'm sure Brock was the whole time, just explaining how badly he wanted to play in this game. So it's not all on them, but I don't think he should have played considering the emphasis that they're trying to put on the concussion stuff. It just didn't make much sense to me. But aside from that, the defense of the Niners has been slipping as well. Excuse me. Sorry, long day. You explained it as well. The short field doesn't help anybody when it comes to defense, but it's not exclusively a this game issue. Like on this losing streak they've been on, the defense has not been playing up to the level that I've been giving them credit for, and I think most people have been giving them credit for. in the sense of they're the best defense in the league. And they're just falling further and further from that. And I wanted to mention something about the Broncos game too. I know we're already past that. That's the Broncos defense that we thought we would see on paper. Like, you see the defense written out, the roster on paper, you're like, damn, this is a good defense. They're going to do something. And obviously they've been the worst in the league, and then they actually played like they were supposed to play. Whereas on paper, I think the Niners are the best defense in the league. And the past 3 weeks, they just have not been playing up to that expectation at all. So was I surprised that they lost? No. But was I expecting a loss? Also no.
Final game. The Chargers versus the Chargers versus the Bears. This game was not good for ratings. I don't know why you put this as a Sunday night game. Justin Fields obviously didn't play. He had a hand injury, so Tyson Badgett was the starter and threw 2 picks. Justin Herbert did what Justin Herbert does against a bad team. The defense stepped up against a bad team. The Bears could move on Matt Eberflus, maybe. Maybe after next week, I'm not sure. They don't have Justin Fields. DJ Moore did what he could do with no quarterback. But this was an ass whooping. This game was not worth watching. It was whack as shit. And the Chargers, I think they'll be okay for now. They beat a bad team, and the Bears are playing for draft picks. I don't have nothing else to say about it unless you do.
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers, it was very apparent how much they missed Austin Eckler at 100% being healthy in this offense. Obviously, against Dallas, that was his first week back. I don't think he was 100%. And then you look, he had 100 receiving yards in the first half or whatever. Like, this guy is a do-it-all running back, and they missed him a lot. Yeah, I mean, there's not too much to really add on it. I expected a little bit better of a game from Tyson, just going off what he did in his first start. But I feel like the expectations were just a little bit too high. We both knew that this game wasn't going to be particularly close. So nothing really. Damn, excuse me. I'm sorry. Nothing really to take away from this game. The injury at the linebacker spot with Edmonds was scary. I'm pretty sure he came back in. But yeah, I mean, I really don't have much to add. I watched the game until like the third quarter, and I was like, well, this just sucks. Like, and I said this last week, primetime games this year have sucked. There have been, I don't know if there's been a competitive primetime game. Primetime as in Thursday, Sunday, and Monday night. Those being the primetime games, they've all sucked. Like, Thursday night has had maybe one good game. Monday night I don't think has had a good game. We'll see tonight if this one's good. And then Sunday nights have been pretty bad as well. So I don't know. They missed in their scheduling thing this year. They messed up a little bit.
Yeah, they did. Well, that's it for Lambo and Matt's World of Sports featuring Side Sports Network. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to Total Pole Nation. We'll be back tomorrow for all of college football. It is Halloween tomorrow. Not only that, but for November, there's a lot of great matchups in college football. And there might be some changes in the rankings. You might see some teams that might make it. And we'll let you know tomorrow. But this is Lambo and Matt's World of Sports. New name has changed. You deserve it for 2 months. So there you go. We got the name changed. We got what you wanted. So we will catch you tomorrow for all of college football. Total Pole Nation, y'all have a great night. Peace out and happy Halloween.